So all these instrumental sounds are useful, but the one instrument that became so identified with contemporary a cappella is vocal percussion. And it really was a long time coming. So if you look through the 20th century, the history of pop music through the 20th century, you started with Dixieland, which really didn't have any percussion whatsoever. And then in the early days of jazz, drums were a little bit of the sound, but the big band sound had so much energy coming from all of these loud acoustic instruments, and there were drums in there. And as popular music morphed, and then rock and roll took over, and the African American tradition in American popular music became more and more ascendant, it became more and more rhythmic. And a cappella never really was in and of itself particularly rhythmic, so we were kind of falling behind in this arms race of how do you replicate popular music song that has rhythm that's so central to it without any specific way to make those sounds. Now, some of you may think, like, well, around the 1980s, beatboxing was becoming popular in hip-hop music, and it was, but I can tell you, because this was my whole process at the time, beatboxing never occurred to me that it could be used in conjunction with a cappella, because hip-hop at the time, and beatboxing, I mean, to give you, like, one of the most popular beatboxing rhythms back then was, like, it was not, like, you can't take that and put it in your eyes with Peter Gabriel. It doesn't work, right? It almost felt like a different world. Just as rap music felt very different from harmonic barbershop and doo-wop and whatever. So, and also the role of and there's a lot of overlap now, but the role of a beatboxer was to come up with a cool beat, a cool groove, and to shift it all the time and show off all these different sounds. And a vocal percussionist is a utility player, making a few core sounds over and over again in the background to lend their voice to a much larger structure. And a lot of vocal percussionists are terrible at doing drum solos, and a lot of beatboxers are horrible at keeping a steady metronomic beat for 3 solid minutes. There are some great people who overlap in both worlds, but they're different demands, different expectations. So the thing I should let you know is, first and foremost, if you're going to do vocal percussion, the most important thing you can do is keep a steady beat. And the reason for this is, and we can go a little into this later, I don't see a piano here, but many of you probably know this, our Western tonal system is by design slightly out of tune. On a piano, only the octaves are in perfect tune. There is a keyboard here. Oh, very well. Well, it's not a totally acoustic keyboard. I would use, if it were a piano, I could. And it's not plugged in, but yeah. But otherwise, it's great. No. It's my favorite. By the way, your plugs here, to me, like, because I'm used to the straight head ones, the little slanted, it looks like someone's like a little sad. You see a little sad face? Every time I plug someone in, it's like, who's this sad boy? So, basically, inside of every single note, and we'll talk about this more when we're talking about tuning and all that, inside of every note is a series of other notes, which are all a series of ratios. An octave is really created by taking, for instance, a guitar string and splitting it in half. If you split it in half and you pluck it, that'll give you an octave. So, all of these notes in the harmonic series going up, I used it just for that. Thank you for pointing it out. All of these notes, and they get closer and closer and closer together, are all inside of this music. But if you keep going around, it doesn't come back to the same note. If you go by fifth, 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 all the way around, the circle of fifths doesn't land you back to these same frequencies, which is why back in Bach's time and earlier, if you had a harpsichord, you were going to play a piece in C, and then you were going to play a piece in F sharp. The tuning was so wildly out, you had to retune the whole thing. So they came up with, let's just make every single interval the same, keep the octaves clean, everything else is slightly out of tune. My point here is only to say that people in Western culture aren't used to things being really in tune. We have some leeway there. However, we are used to perfect rhythm. And by perfect rhythm, I mean the ticking of a clock, people's heartbeats, steady, walking in rhythm. We have this sense of very clean, clear, metronomic sense of rhythm all the way around us. And when we're really in rhythm, and we hear music that's really in rhythm, our necks bond. Like we get in the groove, and we can feel it, right? And as rhythm has taken over and become more and more important in popular music, that sense of a steady groove is hugely important. That doesn't mean an a cappella song, barbershop, whatever, can't be rubato, or an orchestral piece for that matter. But if you're going to have a steady groove, keep it clean, because people will tell if it's out. That's more important than making it sound just like drums, that clean, steady beat. So I have a friend who calls the 3 core sounds that you need to know in a cappella, in vocal percussion, he calls them the holy trinity of rhythm, which I think is pretty funny. But these 3 sounds that I'm going to teach you are somewhere between 95 and 98% of all the sounds that you'll be using in vocal percussion by weight, by kilograms. The first one is in many ways the easiest, and the one that you can be using the most, and that's a hi-hat. You know, the 2 cymbals, one on top and the bottom, that's over here on the left-hand side of the drummer, and it's really just the letter T. Say t, t, t. Nice and short. T, t, t. Good. Just keep that going. Now let's double it. Very good. Now let's double that. Now it's good to pulse them like that. I don't know if you're hearing, some people are just naturally going, because if you don't, it ends up sounding a lot like a sprinkler. But anyway, that's generally how drummers will phrase it. Now, something that you may notice is that if you just keep doing that constantly, and just keep going and going and going, oxygen is only going in one direction. And that is away from your brain. And eventually, if you don't have enough oxygen in your brain, you pass out and then you die. So my first order of business is to make sure that you have ways to get oxygen in to your body. And a hi-hat sound is actually not a bad one too, although it changes the sound a little bit. Instead of going, I'll go in. Okay, so when we start this, it sounds a little bit like someone who just got their retainer in, you know? Like, get work done, it said. In 3 weeks, I'll be talking totally normally, but for now, it's probably gonna be awkward, that kind of sound. So instead of going, you really wanna try to just go really quick and the saliva that was useful in that electric guitar is less useful now. Try it one more time. Let's do 3 out and 1 in. Yes, good. Now try not to do the. Good. Okay. Simple. Some of you are still big, but it's like you have like mint ice cream, and you're like, yeah. Okay. So now the hi-hat is also it's in its closed formation when we have that nice tight T. It also can open up and give us a tss kind of sound, right? That's T, S, 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 T. So go. Good. Now go. Good. Now, that open hi-hat is also another good one to get air in, especially if you need a fair amount of air. So try going. That sounded like the dentist chair, when the dentist calls for the suction and they're, yeah. There is a way to go. No. Like, it's the wide thing. I think it's the Wallace and Gromit mouth that probably gets you that. So if you go. But the thing is, when you do that, you start getting more oxygen than you need. And then you hyperventilate, pass out, and die. So the key is the bandwidth. The brain oxygen barrier bandwidth. Not too much oxygen, not too little. And that actually is one of the tricks, one of the magical things that a good beatboxer does. They're just making sounds constantly, and they never stop making sound, and you're never really sure when they're breathing in or what's happening. It's just always groovy, right? Cool. So that's really your hardwire, your open and closed hi-hat sounds right over there, and we'll do a little crash cymbal later. The next sound is the kick drum. And the kick drum is just really BM or DM. I'm gonna put hi-hat. Tight. Good. Some more. Or good. You get it. Now, some women are thinking like, well, my voice is not as low as you guys, so I can't resonate as low. But the fact of the matter is, that's only really something you use off microphone. Beatboxers who use a microphone when they're performing don't actually make a pitch. They don't go, they actually just use a little plosive of air. Yeah, this isn't a good speaker for it, but because it's such a small cone. But I don't know if you can tell if I'm going, I'm not making a sound, I'm going. Now, why does that work? It's proof of concept is not happening right here. But bottom line, sound isn't really traveling in waves, it's traveling in compressed and decompressed air. We use waves to describe it, but have you ever been near like a concert, big speaker, you see the cone just go,
Yes.
that is a very low pitch. And when I'm going, I'm making a pitch that's lower than I could ever sing. My is here, and my is super low. But you actually need like a subwoofer to be able to get that true tone out there. So just know that's how professional beatboxers are making their kick drums most of the time. But if you're off microphone, it's totally acceptable and works really well. Okay, that's kick, that's hi-hat. The last of the third of the holy trinity of rhythm is the snare drum. And there are two different kinds of snare. One's easy and one's harder. So we're going to start with the easier one, and that's the electronic sounding or the side stick sounding K snare. Say. Breathe in when you need to. And that rhythm is the boots and cats rhythm, right? But you got there honestly. You didn't boots and cats, and you got there from. Now the K sound also actually you can breathe in. So instead of going, you can go. And actually, in inward case, don't get a hairball or whatever like that's one if you do too right? But that K sound, a good tight inward K sound, sounds a lot like an electronic drumstick like clap. Like programmed early drum machines. Try that inward. Try it. Good, and also good vocal percussionists will vary their K. They'll have like a pitched snare. I know, it's all ridiculous. I get it. If you start laughing uncontrollably, you're like, what am I doing with my life? It's fun. It's fun. I ask myself that every day. Yes. Yeah. So that K sound, that you can get different kinds of characteristics around that sound. And the other snare sound is a more traditional rock snare sound. The big round snare drum with the nice little rattling coils underneath it is really PF or PFT. You want it to be a tight sound, and that's also when you can pitch. I'm not so good at it, but really good beatboxers can give you different kind of sizes of snares. So try going. And if there's a lot of saliva coming out, you'll get used to it. But occasionally, even the best beatboxers, you know, in the spotlight, Kevin was from Pentatonics, doing his whole thing, and then it's a water show. You know, it's a water feature. It happens. You know, we're all human here. We all make spitty noises, and yeah. So, any questions so far with these different sounds and making it all work? Okay, I'm going to teach you a couple other little tricks of the trade. One is the shaker sound I was talking about beforehand. Very good for the holidays if you're doing jingle bells and stuff like that. That's just. And if you have two people, it's good to have one person off of the other. So while you're doing that, you're going. And you can hear the beats kind of playing back and forth. Okay. Another thing is a crash cymbal. So you know the big crash and splash cymbals that are across the top of the drum kit? That's really good for punctuating section breaks or big downbeats, right? And a crash cymbal is really like P-S-S-S-A. It kind of decays, right? However, you're going to notice that you can only make one sound at a time. So if I'm doing the crash cymbal, we're going to lose the kick drum on the downbeat. Just listen. So what we do is we combine the crash with the kick and become. Try that. Now listen. The kick's still going, and we get the crash cymbal. That kind of sound, that sonic combination of elements, is part of what creates the unbelievable illusion of vocal percussion. Another one is the idea of perceptual scanning. Your ear will hear things that are happening in different registers as their own lines. So you know the Bach cello, like you kind of hear it like three different instruments are playing. Or if you hear Bob McFerrin's the Blackbird, I can't do it very well, but he jumps around in his register, and you're kind of hearing three different things happen and resonate. Well, when a vocal percussionist goes, you're kind of hearing it happening, right? Your ear's just used to hearing that thing, and it fills in the rest of the gaps. The same way that when you're reading a book, if there's a word like with two letters swapped, or you've seen all those things, all those memes online, our brains fill in a lot of information all the time. We're actually only looking at one specific thing right in front of us, and everything else is just foggy, and it's what we remember from before. We're like slow buffering. Actually, you know all about that here with your internet. I mean, it's almost perfect here. If it was totally perfect here, it wouldn't be fair. Okay. So any questions about vocal percussion in general? The best way you get good at vocal percussion is just by doing it. So when you're singing along with the radio, many of you probably sing the melody, or you probably come up with harmony parts and whatever. Play along with the drums. Be the drummer. Like, drum along with different songs. And you'll start to learn different beats and different grooves and how it works. And you'll make up sounds. And some of them are really easy. Like that kind of an old, like, Boyz II Men finger snapping kind of song. And other things get more and more complex. And if it gets really spitty, you can get windshield wipers installed inside of your car, so, you know, just in case you really need them. Cool. So far so good, fun, instruments, vocal percussion, great. I think it's now time, you've been doing a lot of singing and sounds. I think it's time to get some groups up here performing